The Galactic Council's combined fleet floated in the darkness of space above the Krell homeworld. Smoke and fire covered the planet's surface below. The war was finally over after 8 long years of death and destruction. Admiral Thalen stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display that showed what remained of their military force. He was a tall creature from the Velkan Empire with blue skin and 4 arms. His face showed exhaustion. 23 different alien species had fought together in this war. They started with 100,000 warships. Now only 40,000 remained. The Krell hive has been destroyed, Thalen announced through the communication system to all the ships in the fleet. His voice was tired but firm. The war is over. We have won. Cheers erupted across every vessel in the fleet. On planets throughout Council space, billions of beings celebrated. They danced in the streets. They cried tears of relief. They hugged their loved ones. The nightmare was finally finished. But the victory had cost them everything. Trillions of lives were lost. Entire star systems had been burned to nothing. Planets that once held beautiful cities now looked like dead rocks floating in space. The economy of the entire galactic civilization was in ruins. Food was scarce. Medical supplies were running out. Families were torn apart. Still they had survived. The Krell would never threaten anyone again. A massive ceremony began aboard Thalen's flagship. Diplomats and leaders from all 23 species arrived on shuttles. They wore their finest clothes and carried their flags. The main hall was decorated with lights and banners. Everyone wanted to celebrate this moment together. Diplomat Mora was a small, green-skinned being from the Tilak species. She had large eyes and a curious nature. While others celebrated, she sat at a computer terminal in the corner of the room, reviewing old files. She liked to keep records organized even during parties. She pulled up an application file from 15 years ago. It was marked rejected in red letters. Hey, does anyone remember the humans? Mora called out to the other diplomats nearby. You know, that species from the Sol system? They applied to join the council 15 years ago. Several diplomats turned to look at her. One of them, a floating jellyfish-like creature, laughed loudly. Oh yes, those primitive warmongers, the jellyfish diplomat said. We rejected them because they were too violent and aggressive. They were still fighting wars among themselves on their own planet. What were they called again? Earth? Another diplomat asked. That's right, Mora said, reading from the file. Earth. 3rd planet from their star. They had just barely reached their own moon when they applied. Their ships used chemical rockets and nuclear explosions for power. Very basic technology. More laughter spread through the group. The idea seemed funny to them now. These humans had been so far behind every other civilization in the galaxy. We placed them under quarantine, Thalen said, walking over to join the conversation. Standard procedure for aggressive species. They were restricted to their own solar system. We told them to develop peacefully for a few centuries and then reapply. Did anyone check on them during the war? Mora asked. Everyone looked at each other. No one had thought about the humans in years. With the Krell invasion, the council had bigger problems to worry about. Some distant species in a quarantine zone was the least of their concerns. I'm sure they're fine, the jellyfish diplomat said. Probably still shooting chemical rockets at each other. That species was decades away from achieving faster-than-light travel. Maybe centuries. They had nuclear weapons, someone else added. Probably destroyed themselves by now. Most aggressive species do. The group laughed again and returned to their celebration. Mora closed the file and joined them. The humans were forgotten once more. Music played throughout the ship. Food was served. Diplomats gave speeches about courage and sacrifice. Some cried. Others sang traditional songs from their homeworlds. It was a moment of unity that the galaxy had never seen before. Then everything changed. A young officer ran into the ceremonial hall. His face showed panic. Admiral Thalen. We have a situation. The music stopped. Everyone turned to look. What is it? Thalen demanded. Sir, the sensors have detected something at the edge of the star system. We're picking up 12 vessels approaching our position. Which fleet are they from? Thalen asked. He didn't remember authorizing any ships to arrive during the ceremony. The officer's hands shook. Sir, they're not from any council fleet. The computer doesn't recognize their design. They're using some kind of advanced propulsion system we've never seen before. The celebration ended immediately. Every diplomat rushed to the windows and viewing screens. Thalen ran to the bridge with Mora close behind him. On the main display screen, they could see the 12 vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel. They were enormous. Each ship was 15 kilometers long, larger than anything the Council had ever built. Their hulls were made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange weapons covered their surfaces. Energy signatures the sensors couldn't identify pulsed from their engines. By the stars, Mora whispered. What are those? Thalen zoomed in on one of the vessels. Letters were printed on its hull in a language the computer started translating. Terran Federation Navy. Terran? Thalen said slowly. Computer, search for species designation, Terran, in our database. The computer beeped. Terran. Alternative name for human species from planet Earth, Sol system. Status quarantined. Technology level, pre-interstellar. Last contact, 15 years ago. The bridge fell completely silent. That's impossible, someone whispered. But the ships were real. They were here. And they were waiting. The end. The 12 massive ships moved closer to the Galactic Council fleet. Their hulls reflected the light from nearby stars in strange ways. The metal looked different from anything the Council had ever seen. It seemed to shift colors slightly as the ships moved, like oil on water. Admiral Thalen stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the words painted on the lead vessel. Terran Federation Navy. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. This cannot be real, he said quietly. Humans? The same species we rejected 15 years ago? Mora pulled up the old application file again on her handheld device. She read through it quickly. According to our records, they had barely reached their own moon. Their fastest ships took months to travel within their solar system. They were fighting wars over resources on their own planet. We classified them as primitive and dangerous. Then how are they here? Thalen demanded. How did they build ships like these? Our best scientists took 300 years to develop faster-than-light travel. The communications officer spoke up nervously. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. It's being broadcast to every ship in our fleet. Put it on screen, Thalen ordered. Every display throughout the entire Galactic Council fleet suddenly showed the same image. A human woman appeared. She wore a dark blue military uniform with silver badges on her shoulders. Her black hair was pulled back tightly. Her face was calm and serious. But her eyes were the coldest thing Thalen had ever seen. They were dark brown, almost black, and they looked at him like she was studying an insect. This is Fleet Admiral Hannah of the Terran Federation Navy, 1st Expeditionary Force, she said. Her voice was clear and professional. We have been monitoring your conflict with the Krell species for the past 8 years. The council bridge exploded with noise. Officers shouted questions. Diplomats argued with each other. Someone knocked over a chair. Silence. Thalen roared. He looked back at the human woman on the screen. Monitoring? That is impossible. Our sensors would have detected any observation posts or spy satellites. Hannah's expression did not change. Clearly, your sensors are not as advanced as you believe them to be. Mora stepped forward, her small green face showing confusion and anger. Admiral Hannah, 15 years ago your species applied to join the Galactic Council. At that time, you barely had interplanetary capability. Your ships used chemical rockets. You were still using nuclear fission for power. How is it possible that you now have vessels that surpass anything we have built? Hannah said simply. We had those limitations 15 years ago. We do not have them anymore. That is impossible, another diplomat shouted. Technological development takes centuries. Millennia. You cannot jump from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in just 15 years. Hannah tilted her head slightly. And yet here we are. Perhaps your assumptions about technological development are incorrect. Thalen felt his forearms tense with frustration. This is a violation of your quarantine. You were restricted to your solar system until you could prove you were peaceful and stable. You have broken galactic law. For the first time, Hannah showed emotion. Her lips formed a thin smile, but there was no warmth in it. Galactic law, she repeated. The same law that abandoned us. The same law that told us we were too primitive and too dangerous to join civilized space. The same law that left us alone in the dark while you fought your war. We had reasons for the quarantine, Mora said defensively. Your species was aggressive. You were fighting wars among yourselves. We needed to protect. Protect yourselves from us? Hannah interrupted. Yes, we read your rejection letter very carefully. Multiple times. We understood the message perfectly. You did not want us. You found us unworthy. Thalen tried to regain control of the conversation. That is not the point right now. The point is that you have violated. 3 Krell seed ships, Hannah said suddenly, cutting him off. Everyone on the bridge went silent. What? Thalen asked. 3 Krell seed ships escaped your blockade 3 weeks ago, Hannah continued. Your sensors did not detect them because they use stealth technology. They are currently traveling toward the Orlon system and the Pelix system. Both systems have civilian populations in the billions. The seed ships will arrive in approximately 46 hours. Mora's large eyes went even wider. That cannot be true. We destroyed all the Krell ships. We checked every vessel. We scanned the entire region. You checked incorrectly, Hannah said flatly. Krell seed ships are designed to look like debris. They drift through space pretending to be destroyed wreckage until they reach a new planet. Then they begin building a new hive. We know this because we have fought them before. Thalen felt ice run through his veins. You have fought the Krell? When? That is not important right now, Hannah replied. What is important is that you have a decision to make. You can either accept our help in tracking and destroying these seed ships, or you can refuse and try to find them yourselves. But I should warn you, your fleet is exhausted. Your ships are damaged. Your crews are barely functioning. You just finished an 8-year war. You do not have the resources to search 3 star systems in 46 hours. She paused, letting her words sink in. We, on the other hand, are fresh. Our ships are fully operational. We have been tracking these seed ships since they escaped. We know exactly where they are going. We can stop them before they reach the civilian populations. Why should we trust you? Thalen demanded. You appear out of nowhere with impossible technology. You admit you have been spying on us for years. You violated your quarantine. Give me one reason why I should believe anything you say. Hannah's cold eyes seemed to look straight through him. Because, Admiral, we do not need your permission to destroy those seed ships. We are telling you as a courtesy. We can leave right now and handle this ourselves. But we thought you might want to be involved since they are, after all, your civilians who will die if the seed ships reach those planets. The end. Admiral Thalen had no choice. He agreed to let the humans help track down the escaped Krell seed ships. Fleet Admiral Hannah divided her 12 dreadnoughts into 4 groups. 3 groups would hunt the seed ships. The 4th group would remain with the Council fleet. The Council insisted on sending observers aboard each human vessel. They wanted to see how these impossible ships actually worked. Thalen chose his best officers for this mission. Commander Dane was one of them. Dane was a seasoned warrior from the Velkan species. He had fought in dozens of space battles during the war. He had seen ships explode and entire crews die. Nothing scared him anymore. Or so he thought. When his shuttle approached the human dreadnought called the Indomitable, Dane felt something he had not experienced in years. Fear. The ship was massive beyond belief. It stretched 15 kilometers from front to back. Weapons covered every surface. Strange energy patterns glowed along its hull. The shuttle looked like a tiny insect flying toward a metal mountain. The shuttle docked inside a hangar bay that could have held 50 Council warships. Dane walked down the ramp and saw hundreds of human crew members working efficiently. They moved with purpose and discipline. They wore the same dark blue uniforms. They did not stop to stare at the alien visitor. A human man approached Dane. He was tall with short black hair and sharp eyes. Commander Dane, welcome aboard the Indomitable. I am Captain Taming. I command this vessel. Dane studied the human carefully. Taming looked young, maybe 30 years old by human standards. But his eyes showed experience beyond his years. Thank you for allowing me to observe, Captain. Follow me to the bridge, Taming said. He turned and walked quickly through the corridors. Dane had to hurry to keep up. The bridge was enormous. Holographic displays floated everywhere. Crew members sat at stations that curved around the room. Everything looked sleek and advanced. The technology was at least a century beyond anything the Council had. Take a seat there, Taming pointed to a chair near the tactical station. You can observe from that position. Try not to touch anything. Dane sat down and looked at the tactical display in front of him. It showed the star system and the surrounding space. But it also showed things he had never seen before. Energy patterns. Gravitational flows. Quantum signatures. The sensors were detecting information that should be impossible to measure. Your weapon systems, Dane said, pointing at a section of the display that showed the ship's armaments. I do not recognize any of these configurations. What type of missiles are these? What kind of energy weapons? Taming glanced at the display without much interest. Those are human designs. You would not recognize them because we invented them ourselves. But how do they work? Dane pressed. What principles do they operate on? That information is classified, Taming replied simply. He turned to his crew. Navigation, set course for the Velrix Nebula. Maximum speed. Course plotted, Captain, a human woman at the navigation station responded. Estimated arrival time, 4 hours. 4 hours? Dane thought in shock. The Velrix Nebula was 6 days away at maximum speed for Council ships. These humans were traveling at least 36 times faster than anything the Council could build. The Indomitable lurched slightly as its engines powered up. Then the stars outside the windows stretched and blurred. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel so smoothly that Dane barely felt it. Council ships shook and rattled when entering FTL. This was like sliding into warm water. Captain, we are tracking the first Krell seed ship, the sensor officer reported. It is attempting to hide in the dense gases of the nebula, exactly as Admiral Hannah predicted. Tamine nodded. The Krell always use the same tactics. They think if they hide in sensor-blocking regions they are safe. They do not realize that human sensors work differently than Council sensors. Dane looked at his display. The Velrix Nebula was famous throughout the galaxy as a place where sensors failed. The dense gases and electrical storms made it impossible to see anything clearly. Council scout ships took days just to navigate through it safely. Many ships had been lost in there over the centuries. Captain, you cannot be serious about going into the nebula, Dane said nervously. Your sensors will fail. You will be flying blind. You could crash into a gas giant or fly into an electrical storm. Tamine looked at him with those sharp eyes. Commander, our sensors do not fail in nebulas. We see everything. 4 hours passed quickly. Dane watched the human crew work with impressive efficiency. They did not waste words. They did not panic. They simply did their jobs with calm precision. It reminded him of a machine, but these were living beings working in perfect harmony. We are approaching the Velrix Nebula, the navigation officer announced. Entering the outer boundary now. Through the windows, Dane saw the massive cloud of purple and green gases. Lightning flashed inside the nebula like angry serpents. It looked beautiful and deadly at the same time. Sensors show the Krell seed ship is 12 million kilometers inside the nebula, the sensor officer reported. It is drifting with the gas currents trying to appear as debris. Take us in, Tamine ordered. Full speed. Captain, wait. Dane shouted. You cannot fly at full speed through a nebula. You will kill us all. But the Indomitable plunged into the purple clouds without slowing down. Dane gripped his chair, expecting alarms and collision warnings. But nothing happened. The ship flew through the dense gases like they were not even there. Dane stared at his tactical display. It showed everything. Every gas pocket. Every electrical storm. Every piece of debris. The human sensors cut through the nebula like it was empty space. How? Dane whispered. Quantum resonance scanning, Tamine said casually. We do not rely on traditional electromagnetic sensors. We scan the quantum field itself. Gas and electrical interference do not affect quantum particles. Dane had no idea what that meant, but he understood one thing clearly. The humans had technology that made Council science look primitive. Target acquired, the weapons officer announced. The Krell seed ship is directly ahead. Distance, 2 million kilometers. Firing gravitational disruptors, Tamine said calmly. The end. Dane watched in complete amazement as invisible forces reached out from the Indomitable and grabbed the Krell seed ship. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the enemy vessel. The seed ship's shields collapsed like paper being crushed. Its metal hull buckled and folded in on itself. Within 3 minutes, the Krell vessel was nothing but twisted debris floating in the nebula. The Indomitable turned around and flew back out of the Velrix Nebula at full speed. The entire mission took less than 20 minutes. Target destroyed, Captain Tamine reported to Fleet Admiral Hannah over the communication system. Returning to rendezvous point. Dane sat in his chair, unable to speak. His hands were shaking. The Council's best warships would have needed days just to find that seed ship in the nebula. The humans found it and destroyed it in 20 minutes. Similar reports came from the other 2 human dreadnoughts. All 3 Krell seed ships were destroyed within 72 hours. No human casualties. No damage to any human vessel. It was the most efficient military operation Dane had ever witnessed. When the human ships returned to the Council fleet, Admiral Thalen called an emergency meeting. All the diplomats and military leaders gathered in the main conference room aboard his flagship. The mood was tense and fearful. Commander Dane gave his report about what he saw aboard the Indomitable. Other observers shared similar stories. The room fell silent when they finished talking. Counselor Reth was the first to speak. He was an old diplomat from the Visien species, with gray scales and angry yellow eyes. This proves what I have been saying all along. The humans are more advanced than us. Much more advanced. That makes them dangerous. They could destroy our entire civilization if they wanted to. They just saved thousands of our people. Diplomat Mora argued back. Her small green face showed frustration. They destroyed the Krell seed ships that we missed. They prevented 3 new hive colonies from forming. That makes them allies, not enemies. Today they are allies, Reth said darkly. But what about tomorrow? What happens when they decide they want our territory? Our resources? What happens when they decide the Galactic Council is in their way? Other delegates began arguing loudly. Some agreed with Reth. Others supported Mora. The room became chaotic with shouting voices. Admiral Thalen raised his forearms for silence. We need to make a decision. Do we accept the humans as potential members of the Council, or do we ask them to leave our space? We should demand they leave immediately, Reth said, before they become a bigger threat. And if they refuse to leave? Another diplomat asked nervously. Can we force them? Everyone looked at each other. No one wanted to answer that question. They all knew the truth. If the humans decided to fight, the Council fleet would lose. Badly. Suddenly, every screen in the conference room activated. Fleet Admiral Hannah appeared on all of them. Her cold dark eyes looked at each delegate. We have been listening to your discussion, Hannah said calmly. Your communication systems are not as secure as you think they are. Thalen felt embarrassed and angry. You have been spying on a private council meeting? Yes, Hannah replied simply without any shame. And we have heard enough. You are afraid of us. That is understandable. We are more advanced than you expected. We have capabilities you cannot explain. You feel threatened. That is a natural response. Then you understand why we want you to leave, Reth said boldly. Hannah's expression did not change. You want us to leave because you fear what you do not understand. But before we discuss leaving, I think you should understand exactly what you are dealing with. Captain Jaiwan, please proceed with the demonstration. One of the human dreadnoughts detached from the fleet formation. It was called the Defiant. The ship moved slowly toward a barren moon that orbited a gas giant nearby. The moon was dead and lifeless, just a ball of gray rock covered in craters. All the council delegates watched their sensors carefully. They wanted to see what the humans would do. Captain Jaiwan's voice came through the communication system. He sounded young but professional. This is Captain Jaiwan of the Terran Federation Navy ship Defiant. We will now demonstrate one of our standard weapons systems. The weapon is called a gravitational lance. We will fire it at minimum power. Minimum power? Mora whispered nervously. The Defiant stopped moving. It faced the barren moon from a distance of 50,000 kilometers. A section of its hull opened up, revealing a weapon that looked like a long tube made of rings. Firing gravitational lance now, Jaiwan announced. Minimum power. Single shot. A beam of invisible energy shot out from the Defiant. The council sensors could barely detect it. It looked like a shimmer in space, like heat rising from hot ground. The beam touched the moon. What happened next made every delegate in the room gasp in horror. The moon did not explode. Explosions they could understand. Explosions were normal in warfare. This was not an explosion. The moon simply stopped existing. In one moment there was a moon floating in space. In the next moment there was nothing. Not debris. Not dust. Not scattered rocks. Just empty space where a moon used to be. The council sensors showed what really happened. The gravitational lance compressed the entire moon into a tiny point smaller than an atom. All of that matter and rock was crushed by artificial gravity into a brief singularity. The singularity lasted for maybe 3 seconds before it evaporated into pure energy and disappeared. An entire moon. Gone. Erased from existence. In 3 seconds. The conference room was completely silent. Several delegates were crying. Others looked like they might faint. Counselor Reth's yellow eyes were wide with pure terror. That was minimum power, Admiral Hannah said calmly from the screens. One shot from one weapon on one ship. We have 12 dreadnoughts. Each dreadnought has 40 gravitational lances. We also have many other weapons that I did not demonstrate today. She paused to let that information sink in. Now you understand what you are actually dealing with, Hannah continued. The end. The silence in the conference room lasted for several long minutes after the moon disappeared. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They all just stared at the empty space where a celestial body used to exist. Finally, Admiral Hannah spoke again from the screens. Now I will tell you what we will not do. We will not conquer you. We will not subjugate you. We will not take your territory or your resources. We did not come here seeking power over the Galactic Council. Then why did you come? Thalen asked quietly. His voice sounded tired and defeated. We came because 15 years ago the Krell attacked our observation posts on the edge of your space, Hannah explained. Those posts were small scientific stations studying your region of the galaxy. The Krell killed 40,000 human researchers and their families. Men, women, and children. They did not care who they murdered. Mora felt a chill run through her small body. We did not know that happened. Of course you did not know, Hannah said. You had rejected us. You were not paying attention to what happened in our quarantine zone. But we were paying attention to you. We have been tracking and hunting the Krell ever since that attack. Every human death in our war with them traces back to that first massacre. She paused, and for the first time, her cold expression showed a hint of emotion. Pain, anger, grief. 7 years ago, one Krell seed ship reached our home system. It reached Earth. We were not fully prepared. The battle lasted 3 weeks. We lost 2 billion people. Our moon is still scarred from the weapons fire. But we won. We killed every single Krell creature in our system. And we learned that the galaxy is far more dangerous than we ever imagined. The delegates listened in shocked silence. They had been fighting the Krell for 8 years with a combined might of 23 species. The humans fought them alone and won in less than a year. What do you want from us? Thalen asked. We want membership in the Galactic Council, Hannah said firmly. But on our terms. We will share some of our technology with you. Defensive systems. Medical advances. Sensor upgrades. Things that will help you protect your people. But we will keep our weapons technology. That stays with us. That is unacceptable, Counselor Reth protested weakly. Members of the Council must share all technology. Then we will not be members, Hannah replied simply. We will leave. The galaxy is large. We will do fine on our own. But ask yourself this question, Counselor. Can you say the same? Can your people survive the next crisis without help? Reth had no answer. We also require that you change how you treat new spacefaring species, Hannah continued. No more abandonment. No more arrogance. No more rejecting civilizations because you think they are too primitive or too aggressive. You will help them develop peacefully. You will guide them. That is what the Galactic Council should have been doing all along. Mora stepped forward. And if we refuse all of your terms? Hannah's cold eyes focused on the small green diplomat. Then we leave, as I said. We will continue hunting Krell seed ships throughout the galaxy. We will protect the innocent wherever we find them. But we will do it alone. The Council can pretend we do not exist just like you did for the past 15 years. But remember this, Diplomat Mora. The next time a species like the Krell appears, you will face them without us. Think carefully about whether that is what you truly want. The meeting ended. The delegates returned to their ships to discuss and debate. The arguments lasted for 3 full days. Some wanted to reject the humans completely. They were too afraid. They believed humanity would eventually conquer the galaxy. Better to fight them now while they were still few in number. Others wanted to accept the humans immediately. They saw the practical benefits. Human technology could rebuild their shattered civilization. Human military power could protect them from future threats. The final vote was very close. By a margin of only 12 votes, the decision was made. Earth would join the Galactic Council as a full member. The terms would be exactly as Admiral Hannah specified. Humanity would share non-weapons technology. The Council would reform its policies toward new civilizations. A signing ceremony was arranged aboard Admiral Thalen's flagship. Diplomats from all 23 Council species attended. Fleet Admiral Hannah arrived with a small group of human officers. They wore their dark blue uniforms with silver badges. They looked professional and disciplined. The ceremony was formal and brief. Documents were signed. Speeches were given. Holographic images were taken for the historical records. Earth was now officially part of the Galactic Council. After the ceremony ended, Admiral Thalen found Admiral Hannah standing alone near a large window. She was looking out at the stars with a distant expression. Admiral Hannah, Thalen said quietly. May I speak with you privately? Of course, Hannah replied. They stood together in silence for a moment. Thalen studied the human woman carefully. She looked young by his standards, maybe 40 years old. But her eyes showed the weight of terrible experiences. I need to ask you something, Thalen said. How did you do it? How did humanity advance so far so fast? We have been spacefaring for 3,000 years. Our technology developed slowly over centuries. You jumped from chemical rockets to gravitational weapons in 15 years. That should be impossible. Hannah continued looking at the stars. Do you know what happens when you tell someone they are not good enough? When you reject them. When you make them feel worthless. They become angry, Thalen suggested. Sometimes, Hannah agreed. But sometimes they become determined. Sometimes they decide to prove you wrong. We chose the latter path. But the technology gap was enormous, Thalen protested. Hundreds of years separated us. The gap was always smaller than you thought, Hannah interrupted. She turned to face him directly. You and your council species had centuries of stability. You developed slowly because you had no reason to rush. You made incremental improvements over generations. You had time to argue and debate and politic. She pointed out the window at Earth's distant sun, barely visible from this location. We had 15 years of desperation, she continued. When you rejected us, something changed on Earth. Every nation united for the first time in human history. Every scientist, every engineer, every factory, every resource focused on one single goal: survive. We did not have time for politics or pride or nationalism. We had a deadline. The end.